very good afternoon to everybody. My name is Sita Palachola. I represent VHub, an organization established by the state government of Telangana. It is India's first state government-led organization that is dedicated to supporting women entrepreneurs from all sectors. In Telangana, there's a very unique ecosystem that we have that is quite unique to the rest of the world, not just India. So I'm a part of that innovation ecosystem. What we do at work primarily is work with women founders in urban and rural areas. In urban areas, it's people like us with the privilege of education and then who have an idea, who want to pursue or want to raise capital, from idea validation to raising capital to take them to IPO. We've got structured programs. Now coming to the rural, we have about 6.5 million women that we cater to. They're all organized into self-help groups, and we have similar pre-incubation, incubation and acceleration programs that we do with other government departments, so that every woman in the state becomes an economically enabled individual who's contributing to society and the economy at large. That's a bit of my introduction about the work we do. Now coming to your next question, Vinuta, about why sector agnostic programs are working, but we need sector specific programs for women entrepreneurs. Sector agnostic programs have largely been great for us to bring everybody into the entrepreneurial fold. So it's been very inclusive in terms of women being a part of it. As we all know, there's an underrepresentation of women in every sector, right? So, but what we've realized over the last 7 years is, and have worked with thousands of entrepreneurs. So what we've realized is, if there is a sector-specific program, you're building a pipeline of credible founders who have established pathways. For example, with Habitat of Humanity, with Priya, what we are building under Shelter Tech for construction, we're bringing together specialists. So what do we do if we have sector specific? Then we go deeper instead of spreading ourselves thin, and we have subject matter experts, industry specific mentorship, putting them into vendor ecosystems that they can be encouraged within, because it's always a problem that these are closed circles and clearly male dominated. So sector specific programs will help us, and actually it solves the problem of VCs constantly telling us that there are not enough women in these sectors specifically to invest in. So it solves a larger problem of going deeper, especially in places like housing construction, aerospace, mobility, emerging tech, right? So I feel like a sector specific program will help build that next generation of entrepreneurs who are solid subject matter experts. Thank you.
If you were intentionally wanting to rig the system and change the numbers, what's that one structural change that you can think about in this?
Okay, I would say that non-negotiables are specific sectors like housing and construction, climate tech, emerging tech, to build these specific pathways for upcoming women founders. And a lot of community learning happens as well. While we are enablers and we catalyze their growth, a lot of peer mentoring happens. They know who to reach out to when they're stuck somewhere. They're introduced to rooms and circles which otherwise they were inherently not even invited to. So if you have more participating women founders and role models and people who are doing the work, they will make way for other women to come in. So other than just us as enablers, even community-led, this thing, encouragement happens there. So I think 3 sectors I told you, non-negotiable sectors as we move forward. And yeah, thank you.
So I'll go to Sheetal next. Sheetal, globally, the construction market is about 17 trillion by 2025, and we know that 11 to 13%, and we were talking about this, how reliable or not reliable this data was before, of the construction workforce is women. But when it comes to leadership and specifically technical leadership, etc., the number falls drastically to 2%. And that brings me to your journey. You have probably walked into places at a young age of 2021 and said that I'm here to examine things or like report on things. How was that whole journey of 31 years bringing into what you are building right now to create not just for yourself but for the next generation of women in construction? If you can just walk us through your life journey a little bit.
Yeah, thank you, Vinuta, for this question. Am I audible? Yeah.
Lane, and it has been a fantastic journey, but definitely it was not a easy journey for me, because when I started it was too early for me, just 21, 22-year old, and I chose a sector like construction, which that time never had women at sites. There used to be women in architecture or interior, those kind of sectors, but at sites you will not see women. So definitely when I started as a electrical engineer, I was first working on design projects, and when I started my own consultancy, UBAC, that time I was one woman army. I was doing everything on my own, like making design, then going to sites for checking. So amongst all the tasks, I think checking slabs at high rises was the toughest one for me. I still remember when I first time went to the site for slab checking. Those times they were like safety measures were not that great. You at the top slab, when you go for checking, you have to literally walk on plank and reach to the top slab, and then you have to walk on steel bars, to check all the conduits and all. And for me it was more difficult because I was having fear of heights. So I used to literally get sweating, and my legs used to tremble. And if I fell also, there was nobody near me, because people were treating me like an alien, because women outside, people are feet away from you. So it was a very difficult journey for me. But I think this fear was there, but then I didn't stop. I said every time I went, I said, no, I'm passionate about this, and I really want to continue in this field. And I think this passion, this commitment grew bigger and bigger. And then this fear, what was there, started diminishing. And I think I started from there, and where I have reached today, my company, we have designed more than 160 billion square feet across the globe. We have 2 offices, one in Mumbai, one in Pune. We have designed more than 750 projects. And in fact, 2 days back only, we have backed a project which is 325-meter high commercial building. So, this journey from a single computer from home, when I started, that time I had just delivered a baby, a 3-month-old baby, and I started this company and reach this far. So definitely it was not an easy journey, but at the same time there were so many colleagues who helped me out also during this journey, and I could reach to this level.
Was there a moment in your journey when you just turned around and said, you know what, I'm going to win this thing? Was there like any specific moment that triggered that? And if you were to see somebody in this room who's probably 20, 21, who's trying to break into this sector now, what would you wish they had that you did not have?
Okay, thank you. That's a wonderful question, I think. I think there were many such moments, like small wins. I started from home with a single project in hand, and I was having a good job earlier, which I left and started my own. But I was persistent. I said, come what may, I will, keep on
doing a good job so I can get recognized and can get more work. But getting work itself was difficult for me because I was breaking that stereotype of, when you talk about a consultant, you always see a gray hair guy with specs and that check shirt. And here I was with a young lady and with this pretty face. So people were not taking me seriously. And but I think the work I did, the kind of quality we were giving for the project, which kept on giving us more and more work. I remember getting that one project with Times of India. I think that was the biggest win for me. So that's how corporate like Times of India recognized hard work, and then there was no looking back. I said, now एक लड़की सब पे भारी, that kind of thing, it happened, and now I think we are one of the leading MEP consultants and we are really ruling this industry now.
Can you elaborate what is MEP for the?
So MEP is mechanical, electrical and plumbing firefighting. It is all engineering services which are required for construction. Like architects are appointed for any project, like that MEP consultants are appointed. So coming to your second question, where you were talking about what should be different, I said like that time I think I wanted somebody to mentor me or tell me कि okay, don't worry, you belong here, so somebody to mentor me or some network or some visibility for doing good work. And I think this, my journey itself gave me that encouragement to start something which is now doing the similar work for women in construction. So I have a community for women in construction called the Real Women Global Community. So we actually started it for the same reason, because I think there is a gap, and for women in construction this kind of supporting network is required. So last 2.5 years we are running this community, and we have members in 18 cities. We have mentoring programs, we have industrial visits, and it's a supporting network where we are helping women out of college and entering the industry to tell them the same thing: you belong here and we are there to support you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sheetal. And that brings me to you, Priya. Priya, you and me, we have been working on a very interesting project together. We were trying to work out about the gender dynamics within the construction and housing industry, and Terlinger Center for Innovation and Shelter, Habitat for Humanity, has been doing some amazing work when it comes to construction and housing startups. When and where did the gender lens really come into your ambit, and what were the surprising data points that have come out from our work?
Thanks, Vinita. It's great to be here among all of you. This is the third time I'm coming to Huddle. Also quite surprising to see when there was a gender panel, half of the room leave the space. Also very surprising to see that today's opening session in the morning, we heard a very inspiring talk by Ms. Ashu from one of the investing firm. And then also to see that a gender-focused panel is in the farthest most corner of this huddle session. It says a lot about the focus of gender in such events. But anyway, here we are. And just before I talk about our program and the question you asked, I am Priya. I work with this organization called Habitat for Humanity. Habitat is a global NGO which builds homes for people who doesn't have adequate home or who doesn't have a home at all. One of the programs that we do through Habitat is working with startups which has innovation in affordable housing. We have been doing this program in India since 2017, and we have an interesting portfolio of very futuristic technology that are being built by some amazing entrepreneurs. And we give them, our support is primarily helping them pilot their solutions and demonstrating their solution for their future customers. So while we've been doing this for almost 7 years, what surprised me based on our study is not what came out of the data. What surprised me was there's no data, right? Like, when I'm saying that we are working with startups in housing and construction sector, with innovations in construction, housing and construction sector, those startups itself are very handful of them, right? In 7 years, we have supported around 22 startups. So in terms of numbers, it's very, very small. That is because construction as an industry is a very has been one of the slowest industry in adopting innovation. We still build homes how it was built very many years ago. So if I go and tell my father today, I have been working with startup, there are these amazing technologies, let 3D print my house, or let's use a different material which is not concrete or bricks, nobody is going to agree, right? Because everybody wants to build a house the way it was built, because it is once in a lifetime for most of us. There are a lot of risks involved. It's very, very expensive. It's a prestige project for most of us. So we are already operating in a sector which is a very complicated and innovation averse sector. Now, after 7 years, after working with around 22 to 25 startups very actively and passively with many more, right? We thought it is a good time as an organization to step back and think about when we are working or building or supporting entrepreneurs in housing and construction, a sector or an area where 50% of the beneficiaries are women. So when you talk of a home, 50% of the people who live there are women, right? And when you're building for that sector, how is it that you can leave out an entire segment of entrepreneurs who could benefit from this program, from this support, and who you at least have to very consciously look for women entrepreneurs who has been working in the sector, or if they're not working in the sector, why are they not working? So when we set out to do this very small study, it is a very small study of understanding the role of women entrepreneurs in housing and construction sector. One important thing that we realized is obviously there is no data or study, and when we set out to have this conversation, the mindsets that people have is, why are you even thinking about women? The sector itself is complicated, and the entrepreneurs themselves find it very challenging to build and grow their business. So what is the need to look at presence of women here? Like I said, when we are building an entrepreneurial ecosystem, we don't want to leave out an entire community who has lot of very important role to play in this sector. And that is how we started out, right? Now we have the data. We have data in terms of lack of required support, lack of clear mentoring, lack of entry pathways. But then rather than looking at the data as a mirror, we would like to use this as a map to carve out the pathway on what we can do jointly through this program and otherwise to help women build in this business, be more equitable. Build a sector which is equitable, not just for the end beneficiaries, which we any which ways do through Habitat, but also the entire value chain, to look at women in a more holistic manner.
Thank you so much, Priya. Sita, coming back to you, I have probably kind of like a follow-on or our everyday conversation, right? So access to funding and access to networks are two things that women from every sector struggle with, but especially sectors like what we were talking about, whether it's construction or space tech or things that are
generally guarded very closely, by known circles, right? So, how does a woman who's probably just starting out in this sector, how does a woman actually navigate that system? And how does VHub as an organization support such women?
Specifically funding, you're saying, right? Funding and other network. So, with respect to VHub, we're of course building India's largest VC network, which is going to have gender lens investing. As much as people like to argue with me and say, oh, why Sita, investing is just investing. I've been on both sides of the table. It's not an equal playing field. Anybody wants to take this offline with me, they can come travel with me to Hyderabad. I'll have enough stories to tell. So, what that means is you are creating a pool of investors who are saying, we want to invest in women-led businesses in specific sectors. So you're not taking away the merit. They're not investing in you because you're just a woman. You're a subject matter expert in that sector. But even if they want to look, so this has to become a community-driven thing, which is why I think our project together with Habitat for Humanity and VHub, Shelter Tech, is sort of like a very important milestone for us as an organization at a state level that supports women entrepreneurs. Now through VHub, because they will have access to all of these institutional funds and angel investors, they can also be a part of other cohorts. So it could be that somebody from emerging tech and manufacturing are coming together. There's some overlap between digital manufacturing and climate tech. So it is about communities at the end of the day. And when you bring like-minded individuals together, they solve for each other. So if Sheetal and I are sitting in a room and I could be building a completely different product, but the fact that Sheetal is sitting in Bombay, Sita is sitting in Hyderabad, our challenges will be similar in terms of industry-specific mentorship. It could be so also heavily technical roles, right? That have to have licenses and that you need specific technical accreditations and certifications to go through. That is where these sector-specific programs are coming into play, so that it's easy. It's like a one-stop shop. You come and you say, this is what I will get, A, B, C, D. And somebody else in the network can also solve that, not just somebody from VHub. So it has to be a community-driven thing, and VHub solves that by creating access to this industry-specific mentorship, creating access to finance, also telling you what kind of finance at what position. You are a funding expert yourself, and you know hundreds of people walk into your office and ask you. So through VHub, that's what we are trying to create, and though it's by the state government of Telangana, it's open access to everybody. You can be in Dubai, you can be in Canada, you can be in Bombay, you can be wherever, and you can reach out to us. Even tier 2, tier 3, we've spoken about this multiple times. Why should we, just because we have a privilege of education and we speak in English, we should hold IPs and we should hold brands? Why can't somebody in tier 2 and tier 3 places hold brands and IPs? This cuts across sectors. So yeah, I hope that answered your question. Yeah.
Absolutely, Priya, I have one follow-up for you. With all the findings that we have, of course, we still have the program yet to be delivered. But is there going to be a change in how Habitat for Humanity will look at their programs from now on?
Yeah. So one of the most important change would be, how we design the program, right from the beginning itself. So some of our earlier call for applications, when we generally do a call for applications for startups, it used to be calling for startups in the housing and construction sector. Now, when you say housing and construction, I think what stands out probably very prominently is, just imagine when you say housing and construction, what comes to your mind, right? You see actually constructing the house, you see cement, sand, brick, and like a very difficult industry, and probably that is why the kind of applications that we got were mostly from men. So like out of 10, 8 or 9 would be from men. So one is, housing is not just about constructing the house. There are a lot of things that are involved in the house, right? From land, energy, everything related to water, sanitation, the legal support that is required, finance, which is very, very important. So I think we are going to, one of the most important thing is that we are going to tailor our call for application itself such that, we don't leave out like an entire community just by wrong messaging, right? That itself is so important. Another thing is, obviously, we are running a acceleration program, a pilot support program, and the idea here is not to forcefully fit women here, right? Just because, let's say if we are accepting 4 entrepreneurs for this program, we are not going to say mandatorily we want to women. You cannot compromise on the merit of the technology, but then one, like I said at the entry point itself, we want more women. We will look at some of the thematic areas which are of focus to us as an organization. Building material is one of the most important area, but we will also look at other areas like finance, legal support, etc., where we might find more women entrepreneurs, and not just, like I said, for the sake of women entrepreneurs, but because thematically it makes sense for us, because that is the need in the market, and have a program designed to be more inclusive, not just in terms of onboarding them, but also once they are part of the program, provide the right kind of technical coaching, mentoring, access to the right kind of investors, and most importantly, like Sita said, access to the right kind of communities, right? Like not just for this program, I think any program that we talk about, the coalitions and the communities that one is part of is most important, because like our program, I think 4 of our partners are sitting here. VHub is here, Kerala Startup Mission is here, Wilcro is here, IIT Palakkad is here. So we run our program with different kinds of partners so that we can access their network, their expertise. So to be able to build this, very meaningful coalition, somebody like Sheetal, whom we did not even know, right, who's doing such meaningful work. So to be able to bring the right kind of partners to leverage their strength and expertise and build a program around it, so that we are not doing this by ourselves, and taking the support of the ecosystem to help them grow and in the right direction.
Thank you, Priya. Before we go into Q&A, I have one last question for you, Sheetal. One of the painful, at least for me it was very painful, one of the painful insights that came from our study together is that women are not taken seriously for their technical abilities. What do you think policy-wise or otherwise, what should happen? And I don't think this is only restricted to construction sector. Me and Sita were having a discussion, and this is same for across all technologies, right? Women are not taken seriously because they assume that either we are from a marketing background. Even now, the general assumption is that we are in the lightweight sectors. So how do you think as an entrepreneur, how do you think policy or what should generally happen so that this kind of changes, at least for the next generation of entrepreneurs?
Hello. Can you hear? Okay. So I think I had answered your question before also. People don't take you seriously. Now also, even if you call somebody and that person don't know you personally, that person will think you are a receptionist or somebody like that, or accountant or somebody like that. You are not the owner, So that perception is still there. So it will take ages for us to come out of that. But I'll tell you what is missing in all these things is visibility. So women are silently working in this industry, and don't even know that they are working and they are doing such amazing work. So if we give them visibility, then only it is possible. People will take them seriously because they will see the work what they are doing. So that's why we had started the initiative called the Real Women Awards, for that same reason, because women don't have visibility in this industry, because the percentage itself, like both of them said, it is hardly 2% women in this industry, and that too they are silently working somewhere in the corner. So how do you expect people to take you seriously? So you have to take them out in the limelight. You have to showcase their work, and then only this change will happen. And it is definitely going to take some time, but we have to I think we have to be the change what we want to see in the world. So with that thing only we started the Real Women Awards, where we are giving visibility to these women. That different sectors, like we were discussing some time back about how many opportunities are there in this industry. So in this awards, what we do is we show the different categories. So each category there is one award. So even women out of college, from engineering or architecture, they also can understand in construction industry there are so many opportunities for women, and so many women are working already in this industry. So I think this is one thing I think, and secondly I think network. They should come out more. They should network with within the industry. Then only it is possible. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much.
So also to the people who are here, the women and gentlemen, when we stop looking at women founders or anything as social stories and start looking at them as economic enablers, right? There is data, for example, in housing and construction, if we increase by a marginal, housing and construction apparently contributes to 8% of India's GDP. And in that, if we increase the female workforce participation, the result is in billions. Similar for manufacturing. So it's not a social story that somebody is trying to sell. It makes economic sense. So I think I would like to leave everybody with that thought, because in many rooms that we enter, they'll be like, we'll have an all-women panel, or we'll have women talk about challenges, and then everybody's heard, we're done. It's not just that, right? Like it has an economic implication, it has a societal implication. It is how you are changing fabric of an entire generation. So the programs that we build, we have, whether they're sector agnostic, sector specific programs like Shelter Tech, role models like Sheetal. There is no just one Indira Nui, right? There is hundreds of people like Sheetal, like she said, who have to come out in the forefront and say this is possible, where success is not some aspiration, but it is accessible. And at the same time, there is a way to do it. There is a method to do it, and you can have access to mentorship. You can have access to growth pathways. You can have access to funding. People will believe in your idea, and you'll have a safe space to try and fail. So I think it's important. That is why for ecosystems like either Kerala Startup Mission or VHub and Telangana ecosystem to exist, where founders can actually come and women founders also can come, and there's a safe space to try, fail and succeed. Thank you.
So Vinitha, when you asked what will you do differently in the program, I think I missed adding this point. So when we did this terms of reference to have partners to run this program with us, from then I think one of the important aspect that we said, the focus of the which is going to be part of the program is male allyship, right? And the reason we did that is because even before we set out to do this, and through our study, you realize that one of the biggest, and even now we heard, one of the biggest challenge is mindset. And where does this mindset shift needs to happen? I think, okay, women's mindset needs to shift, but there is a larger importance of everybody shifting their mindset. Everybody, not including women in their business because they should be gender inclusive, but there are role models, there are cases, there are entrepreneurs in our portfolio who have like a large number of women in leadership because it just makes business sense for them. It's not because, and in our portfolio of 22 startups, there is not a single social venture. All of them are for-profit businesses. So you can imagine they are not being gender inclusive. They are having women as co-founders or in their leadership purely because it makes business sense. And we totally understand that, when you are working in a sector like housing and construction, probably you think that it is not safe for women and probably they are not cut out for that. But then, at least to help them think differently is also a very important part of the program.
Hello? Yeah. Completely with you on that, Priya. I think we have time for a couple of questions. Yeah.
Sita, I have a question, two questions for you. So, you being a Telangana ecosystem enabler, being the CEO of WeHub, how do you attract more women in a technical entrepreneurships and help them scaling up? Second, do you think is there a gender lens in investment side? Do you see any unconscious bias when women raise their funds from an investor? So, two questions.
First question, if I understood correctly, you asked how do we encourage women in the tech sector?
Tech sector in Telangana ecosystem and scale them up.
Sure. So what happens is we are sector agnostic, but we have everybody in almost equal representation. How do we help them? There are structured programs. So for example, if you come for idea validation, there is a separate program. Then going to market, there's a separate program. If you're only coming to us to raise capital, there's a separate program that takes you through all the through the entire journey from A to Z, right? Hand-holding of what is fundraising going to look like for you? Is it seed, pre-seed? What is it, a bridge round, whatever? So wherever you're in your journey, you can come, and whatever sector you're in. Tech specifically, we ensure we identify portfolios, VC portfolios that have inherently invested in tech before, and ensure, because the understanding of institutions is better if they have a built of tech that's similar. So for example, we have a space tech company. I think they're going to raise about 9 crores or in this month at some point. Then we had somebody in Resilience AI that got a check of 1.8 million USD from Kalari Capital. So we know where to put you. We know who we should connect you to, right? So starting is never a problem. So I like your question. Starting and scaling is the problem. So we ensure you don't drop off and that your journey is consistent, because then there is a structured support system laid out for wherever your path is, whatever you're doing as a tech or a non-tech entrepreneur. Now, next question, you asked me if I see that there is bias, inherent bias. Yes, I think 16 years of experience and 18 years of working with women. That bias is still there, but people are openly having a conversation, at least that there is a bias. So if you ask me very openly, yes, there is still a bias when a woman founder walks into the room. There are times even when conversations are more encouraged with a male co-founder. Rather, they will not greet the woman the founder, but they will greet the male co-founder. These things exist exist very openly on the table, right? And the idea of coming and establishing your presence in front of a VC is twice as hard for a woman, because you're convincing yourself and them that I'm really here, I'm serious, this is my product, please believe in me. So yeah, that bias still exists, but luckily we have people who are very vocal about these biases and we are talking about them. So we're making people aware. Something that's been so normalized, we're making people aware. I hope that answers your question. Next time you can also, if you spot a bias, call somebody out.
I would like to add something to that, Sita. So one of the things, I'm from a deep investment background too, and one of the things that I have observed is from the investor lens, it is lack of access to deals. That's what they say, right? So inherent bias, and I had bias myself. I'm not kidding you, because it is so conditioned in our way, right? So it's slowly changing. Now, if you look at each fund's portfolio, when we're looking back, we don't have any women founders. So now everybody is wanting to invest into women. But again, it should not be an act of tokenism. At the end of the day, investment is a financial decision, right? So you have to be comparable to a male entrepreneurs, but because it is more difficult for us, we have to be better than male entrepreneurs to be able to raise money. That is the truth. There are a lot more funds today who are actively looking at having a more inclusive portfolio. So yeah, there is bias, but I think the positive side is now at least coming aware of it. Yeah.
Hi, good evening. So I'm also Priya. Right. So my question is like, see, I'm a chess player. So I used to go for like chess tournaments, and I remember the first tournament when I went, I saw a separate prize category, like for women players specifically. So that was a very new thing to me, and I asked the coordinator as to why you have a separate category for women. So same thing, I think one of you mentioned that we need to bring more women into chess. So that was the point which was mentioned. But still, I cannot absorb that fact, right? Do we really need a separate category or separate way of, or separate? I know it's a very broader question, but still. According to you, do we really need a separate category as such for us to come forward or be recognized?
So statistically, it's going to take 175 years for us to have an equitable world where men and women are represented equally, right? In all fields. So until then, if you don't have categories that merit you for your hard work, it's not just because you're a woman there, that's merit. So a lot of people ask me, there's the world's largest incubator called T-Hub in Telangana, in Hyderabad. When T-Hub is there, why do you have one separate thing for women? So women face, I'm sure quite unique challenges, whether it's sport, whether it is business, whether it's professional career or entrepreneurship. So largely when the construct is of male dominated, your HR policies are also written by men. So somebody who's drafting maternal leave policy is a man. So that becomes difficult, no? So this is about representation. How is representation going to come out if you slowly bring about role models in each of the sector? So when they say, if you're asking me largely if representation, what I read your question is there separate category for women representation necessary? Yes, it is necessary. Because somebody who does not have the privilege or access that you have, who's a woman who's facing XYZ challenges, will look at you and say, this is also possible. Because it's also a lot of social conditioning and all of that. Do you think you can travel freely anywhere in India? Why should they have women trains and buses? Right? That's a simple everyday challenge I'm telling you. Today at midnight, can you walk? You'll see to your left and right male people, they will say, yeah, I can walk at 1:30, 2:30, 3 in the morning. It starts from there. It's safety, it is about creating role models, it is about creating safer journeys. So it's not so much people say women category, so you still have to work hard, no, even in women category. So, but it is important to create safe spaces, and it's collective responsibility. It's not just the government's responsibility. As a society, we need to do that. We should start from home, and then start at professional level and wherever we are. It's a collective responsibility. So it's a large social dialogue that you're talking about. And today it won't be enough. And all these people will run away if you and I start talking about point 1 to point 10, right? But I hope people are conscious of it, conscious of the biases, conscious of why this category is happening, right? I can be CEO of VHub. I'll tell you a small, I was in New York with the Chief Minister's delegation. It was a multi-million-dollar something that we were closing for Telangana state government. I had 6 missed calls from my cook in New York. Then I called and I said, what happened? Then she said, Amma, there are no tomatoes in the house. Then I said, what is sir doing? He's watching cricket match. I didn't want to disturb him. So for people who understand. It is okay to disturb me in New York for the tomatoes, but it is not. And my husband is a very nice fellow, actually. He's trained to be a feminist now. Despite that, the conditioning in the house is that you don't disturb sir when he's watching TV. You call her whether she's in Timbuktu or Antarctica. So this is in a lighter vein, but if you think about it, it's very deep-rooted, right, in our communities, in our societies. So yes, for more strong female role models to come in front, you need specific places, safe spaces, even competitions, and places where we can speak openly about our challenges. Yeah, and panels. 7 men sitting and talking on a panel, nobody will say, why are there 7 men on the panel? Suddenly they'll say, why all women are talking? Why there's not... I faced this so many times. So we should all be, aware of that unconscious bias also. Okay.
I actually have an appeal for all the women in the room. This is like something that actually irks me a lot. Is that, like Sita very rightly pointed out, it's about representation. It's about having our voices heard. So if you keep seeing enough manuals, you will get as frustrated as I am now. But I think in your own local circles or wherever your ecosystem is, I think please make sure that every panel has good representation. I mean, right now we can only talk about gender inclusivity. There's a lot more distance we need to cover about real inclusivity. But that's just one ask. Any other questions?
Hello. I actually want to thank you all because when I was going out, I'm from Telangana, but I'm now settled here. And what you said, when I started my business, after 7 years, they started calling me, she's a small gunda. Because my Malayalam was very bad. And when I started to say, this lady, she's like one small gunda now in my area. But I'm very happy. I want to ask one question to Priya that, when you're talking about habitat and building construction and all these things, women are not allowed. Actually, women did not come because men said why. But today, I think because of technology and women getting into that area, how easy it has become for women as such is my question.
How easy is it for women to come in what aspect of construction? So see, we are here specifically talking about entrepreneurship. So that is just one small aspect of this whole conversation that we are having, right? But if your question is how easy it is for women to come into various aspects of housing and construction, I think in certain areas, let's say a great example is Kerala's Kudumbashree, right? It's a coming together self-help group. So when I was I spoke about the importance of communities. Sita just spoke how important it is to start from your home to your neighborhood, your communities, your professional, and then that is what kind of trickles down into other spaces also. If it is easy, if your question is not really, right? Are things changing? Yes. it's not how it used to be back then. People are coming into this space, but that is just probably a very early entry point. But there are a lot of things that needs to be changed, and I think forum like these and platforms like these, that's what we are trying to do little by little, right? So
I would like to add something here. Women are coming to this industry, but are they consistent? No. Because women inherently, they have so many social responsibility, plus their old parents' responsibility, or family responsibility. So in between, they leave the career and they sit at home. So this is what is currently also happening, because we women are taking up all this responsibility to ourselves. That's the problem, nothing else. It is easy to enter, but to sustain is difficult. Everybody is not fortunate to get that support, what few females are getting.